All right, you guys, we're here at Colectivo Podcast, and I have the privilege today to be sharing the mic with my son, Joseph Flores, who is our food warehouse. He's actually our warehouse supervisor in charge of not only food, but basically all the donations that come through NVCS. And as he catches his breath, because we just called him from his place of work, I'll just talk to you a little bit about what it has been like to work with family members. And I always equate it to the best of times and the worst of times. When it's great, it is fantastic. When it's bad, it's high school. It's deep. It's getting phone calls from family members, and it's insane. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. And for some of you who know my background, you know that I spent 20 years in prison. And for me to think of how I can catch up and spend as much time with family members, the fact that I work with my son and I get to see him day in and day out, it's a true blessing. And I've told him before, but Joseph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Let people know a little bit about Joseph, a little bit about, the things that occupy your thoughts aside from the job that you hold here at North Valley Caring Services.
So I have 3 children. My kids really are the center of everything that I do. And pretty much outside of that, I'm a gamer. I like to go out once in a while with a couple friends. But for the most part, my world revolves around my children. Your grandbabies. My
grandbabies. They're amazing. And that's one thing I wish I had just a little bit of more time to be able to spend with them. But everybody says they love their kids the same, but tell us the truth here. Which one of them do you like the most?
So they're all very different. I don't have any favorites. But right now I'm very connected to my son Noah. And they go through phases. Kids are not something where they're consistently the same all the time. And with that being said, it means that each one has needs at different times, where my son Noah is just kind of being a little bit more, I don't know how to say it. He's a lot more closer to me right now, which is very, very appreciated.
Yeah, I've noticed that there seems to be slides or windows where some of the kids are a little more relational than others, and it'll come back around. But that was a great answer. I thought you were actually going to name one of the kids, and I was going to just put you on blast right now. But what has it been like working at North Valley Caring Services?
It's got its amazing moments where it's pretty much something that's not replicable in any other job field that I've ever had. And it's got its moments where it could be more intense and difficult than other jobs I've ever had. With that being said, it's really my favorite job I've ever had.
Give me an example of like a tough day here at North Valley Caring Services. What does that look like?
A tough day here, for example, when we first started in, I believe it was the spring, and we had April showers, and we had to unload 40 pallets of food with it pouring rain, using an old beat up forklift, dealing with communication issues, learning the ways to get better. Those are the days that are really difficult. Those are the days that are also the most that you learn from.
I know you're talking about the food distribution. It blows my mind that we have moved from the day of the stay-at-home order into this drive-through food pantry that we run every week, and initially it was twice a week. And how few people know all the work that it takes to bring that food to the community week in and week out. And they demand rights now. And what would you like people to know about something that has to do like behind the scenes that maybe people don't appreciate right now?
I think that one of the things that I would say I would want people to understand is that it's not easy bringing it here. Um, I do feel that it's something that I'm happy that people understand and feel entitled to certain things to a certain degree. I think that just goes to show that we've produced something that's really been consistent, constantly improving. But with that being said, sometimes I feel like people don't understand, and that entitlement kind of can become something that wears you down in a sense.
Yeah, I think I know exactly where you're coming from. It's great. The entitlement means that there has been a consistency with this, and people, they don't know that we started off with 10 boxes. They don't know that we started off, on the street, and we couldn't get people to take the quality of food that we were giving away. And then to look back 5 years later and to see, the quality of food and the amount of food that we're able to give week in and week out, people just, they have no idea. But behind the scenes kind of work, when you're tired, when your back hurts, when you have to deal with, special people at the sites where we pick up food from, that's something that I think people should know. And in that way, I think sometimes, it's not that you want to have people express gratitude for food, but there are some days where you would hope that people would be a little more patient, a little nicer, and or just understand the devotion and the hard work that it takes, I think, for people to be fed week in and week out. So for us, part of the show is really giving you that behind the scenes look, not only to the person, but to the programming. And I mean, it really does take a lot of people coming together. What is your favorite thing about the volunteers, working with volunteers?
I think that my favorite thing working with the volunteers is that it's specifically with this area. I think it ties to them and their situation in this area, them not all having their legal status. I think it shows that that they are willing to do that little extra that the normal volunteer won't. And I think it's really awesome that they've really taken it and ran with it. And it's really helped propel and launch us to the next level, which really, really has affected them and their families. And I see all the blessings that they get.
Yeah, I'm sure you're referring to the fact that our volunteers have been here even before the stay-at-home order, even before the uncertainties of COVID, and really showed up, and they have worked and not gotten paid, and they've been consistent, and it's so inspiring. And the fact that, many of them don't have legal status in the country, it's really exciting to hear the president the other night in his State of the Union speech really, I think, speak about this particular type of person in our community that is new to the country, may not have legal status, but is definitely contributing to society. And there should be a roadmap for individuals like this to obtain their legal status. And for those of you who know me, I'm not a political person. I want things to be done the right way, but I also think that, when people fight and they struggle and they put their lives and their bodies and their money on the line for this nation, then we should do right by them. And it just reminds me of a visit I did not too long ago to Tijuana, Mexico, and talked to some veterans who had been deported for some minor crimes. And it was just a shame for me to see that, this country allowed people that were not here necessarily legally. They allowed them to go and fight, and yet they deported them somewhere down the line. And I just feel like you can't have it both ways. Like, once you allow somebody to fight on your behalf, then you should also do everything it takes to be able to rehabilitate in some cases, or to support these families, because again, they put their lives on the line. So yes, we're really, really proud of our volunteer force. It's mostly women, mostly ladies who have children, and they've been here since day one. What's the hardest part about working with volunteers?
I think that the most hardest part about working with volunteers has to be, sometimes for me, it's the communication barrier. I have difficulty speaking Spanish. But also aside from that, I think that the hardest part also has been some of these women specifically have invested so much of themselves where it almost feels like they're borderline employees in a sense, and that position that they create for themselves can sometimes be something where they kind of, I don't want to say overstep a boundary, but where they kind of do too much in a sense where someone kind of wants to be a supervisor in a sense, and those are the things that make it a little bit hard to pull back from. Other than that, though, it's more good than bad, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, and NVCS, you're hard pressed to figure out who's a volunteer and who's a staff, because we really do give opportunities like that to everybody in our community, and we give responsibilities to volunteers. We give keys. And we also give them the ability to lead. But whenever there is one person, whether it's staff or not, that just doesn't lead the right way or oversteps boundaries, then yes, it can be quite problematic. And, what I see, the positives of volunteers is, the fact that they come in as individuals and they quickly become part of a group and a family that support each other. But you're right. When it's bad, it's really bad. You can have a disagreement with a volunteer, and now 6, 7, 10, 15 volunteers are no longer talking to you. They're making faces.
Yes.
And or something can happen that's really minor, and like a fire, it just will be ignited through all the volunteer ranks. But I also take us back to the fact that we are different from a normal organization. We are a community center that's built on relationships, and our relationships get worked out every day for good and for bad. And we would not be where we are at if it weren't for that process. So we have no desire to go backwards. What we do have a desire is to really find ways of being able to give back. Once we have that disagreement, once we have that blow up, remind ourselves that you don't quit on family members, you don't give up, and you try to find a way back, and we've been able to do that, I think, for the most part. Joseph, where do you see your life in the next 5 years?
That is an interesting question. I've given it some thought, and I can't really say I know exactly where, but I do want to be somewhere where I'm have my hands in a bunch of different areas. I want to be versatile and kind of not committed to just one thing. I want to be open to all kinds of different opportunities. Working with you, I've really realized that everything is what you make it, and sometimes when you don't see something, you just got to create it.
I feel like I have to press you more on that, and not so you say flowery things, but how has it been working with your dad?
It's been good, and it's had its bad moments, but for the most part, it's really been something that's allowed me to learn a lot about myself. Not having you for such a long time has affected me in a lot of ways, and just seeing the things that you've done in such a short period of time, and being able to be a part of it with you, like for the majority of it, it's truly been eye-opening to me for what I'm capable of doing, and realizing that hard work pays off. I've always been a hard worker, and I've done things, but I haven't always seen the fruits of my labor, and it's been hard sometimes to be motivated to do extra. And here, taking the bull by the horns in a sense, it's really made me realize that even though I'm working with MVCS and doing certain things here, there's doors open all over the place, and to not feel so boxed into just one position. Although I am realizing that I can't wear myself thin because I do have family that I must take care of.
I think you touched on really heavy, deep statements right there, and I'm so proud of the fact of how you set that out, in the fact that you have to some degree learned a lot of different skill sets, I think, and you've only scratched the surface. This place throws curveball after curveball after curveball here. Once you get something, under your belt, the next thing comes up, right? So it's a really intense lifestyle that we're living, I think, because that's how I want to sort of categorize it. But I also love the fact that, most people nowadays, they have to see the immediate fruits of their labor, like they said. Like it's a show me world. And for you to have trust in systems, for you to have trust in beliefs, which, sometimes, you're working in the blind. Sometimes you're working unseen. Sometimes there's ways of cutting corners. But the fact that you're consistent and you're always doing things, full throttle and the best of your abilities, I think that speaks volumes. And I'm very hopeful that that's going to give you so many opportunities in life, because to remain self-motivated is very difficult. You have to have those pillars in which you say, I'm going to do what I do because, I'm going to be true to my character or something like that. Because nowadays you don't always see what the fruits of your labor are, and if you don't see that, sometimes people just won't give things a try.
And to touch on that, I do think it's important to sometimes have blind faith with what you're doing. At first, when I was working some of these hard, long days that I was doing, and I wasn't seeing the immediate results of it, it was heavy on me. And to have time under my belt and to see certain things, for example, starting off with that yellow forklift, that thing gave us so many issues, but to realize and look back at how that yellow forklift turned into a brand new forklift. And then not only that, we doubled up and we got a second forklift. And realizing that the time that we put in right now will down the line pay off for whatever it is that's to come. And one of the things that's very difficult to help not only volunteers but also staff, we go as far as we put in the work, and sometimes people want to cut corners, and what I've realized doing this is that when you cut corners, you take away from yourself and from everybody else. And when you work hard, it really is something that there's certain things that aren't easy to do. To do the right thing is usually harder to do, and which is something that requires discipline, and it requires faith, because most of us, it's human nature for us not to want to do extra when it's not going to benefit us. But in the end, the way that North Valley has worked, I've come to realize that every little bit of extra that you give, it always produces something much more. And it really is a blessing, not only to me and my family, but to see everybody around start to flourish and new opportunities become available to us all as a unit.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you. There was days I can reflect on where I would tell you guys, this is going to be better. It's going to get easier. There's going to be funding available. And you guys would look at me, and I wasn't always sure if you believed me or not. But the fact that you guys held out and you guys worked through it, it's the reason why we are here today. And I don't know one particular program. I don't know how big it's going to get, but I do know that our intent here at North Valley Caring Services is to continue offering services to the community, continue building people up, work with like-minded people, partners, agencies, individuals to be able to do this work together. I don't want to just be the monotone interview. And so I do expect to bring Joseph back with some more content. I know that him and his distant cousins have talked about a podcast. And what can you tell me about, if you had your own podcast, what type of materials would you be touching on?
I wouldn't be touching such conventional issues, I think I would be a little bit more playful and fun with it in regards to it not being so business minded in a sense, I guess.
Well, this one started off business minded, but we'll get
a little
to
more loose in a sense.
For sure, we're mostly dealing with issues relating to North Valley Caring Services, but that's the whole point. The whole point is to imagine what Joseph does in his downtime, and also always be able to share what people are willing to share. Some of these cousins, I've been amazed at the content because I just see that they are funny individuals. They're very smart intellectuals in their own way. And, they can hold a conversation about paint drying and make it fun and make it so. Yes. I'm always rooting for them. Sometimes I scratch my head, not sure who other than myself will be listening. But I definitely root you guys on. And whether it's gaming, whether it's diversifying, Joseph, I want you to know that I am very proud of you. I'm very proud to be your dad. I'm very proud of the work that you have done. Aside from being your dad as your boss, I know the work that you put in. I know the sacrifices you're making today, and you're working towards a career, and you're working towards opportunities that will go way beyond your present circumstances. So that, as a father, makes me really happy, and as a community, you should be very proud of the work that Joseph does, and also know that you're welcome to come alongside of his volunteers. You're welcome to dedicate time here. Any closing statement, something you'd like to say to wrap this up?
I love you, NVCS.
I love you. All right, you guys. So that's the latest podcast. Joseph Flores for you.
Thank you, guys.